Hello everyone, Magdalena here, Wolf of Coins. Thank you so much for tuning in. This video, I know it already, will be long, but I believe it's really worth watching. And yeah, it's a topic I've been thinking about for a while now, and yesterday I was researching because I'm writing the guidebook for my Slavic soul oracle, and I was researching the topic of the sacred deer for this card, this image. And my mind kept being blown away, so I thought I would put it all together. It took me a lot of time, much more time than I planned, but and then share it with you because it's amazing. I think so. So I wanted to talk about the aspect of the goddess as the sovereignty. If you're familiar with Celtic myths, you might have heard this term. It basically means that the goddess represents the land. So the hero who marries the goddess becomes king of the land. And it's not only, the idea was not reserved only for Celts, because we don't have to search far to remind ourselves of the Egyptian pharaohs who had to marry their sisters in order to be pharaohs, so kings of Egypt. And there are many other examples of that idea. So the deer represents the earth element, and on the Slavic tree of life, of world, the world tree, we have like three guardians that are in the roots. There's the serpent or a dragon. The trunk is guarded by a sacred deer, and in the crown there sits a firebird. So I wanted to talk mostly about the aspect of the earth, of the middle world, because this is the roots means underworld, the land of the dead. The crown represents the land of the gods, heavens, and the tree trunk represents our human world. So in this aspect, it's in this world it is important who rules the land, right? It's one of our concerns. And so it's about our world, and the deer often, in my opinion, represents that aspect of the deity. So goddesses associated with the deer are among the most ancient deities because their tradition dates back to the hunter-gatherer societies that revered the reindeer, which are the only animals in this family of Cervidae. Am I saying this right? You know, the deer family, where females also have antlers. In Celtic myths, there are loads of women turning back and forth into a doe and into a human being. There are enchanted maidens that are really human or really deer. We can also think about Artemis and her famous Cyrenean hind, which was said to be horned. And here she is, also with a lion, but yeah, keep that in mind. And yeah, in reindeer herds, it is the female, an older female, that leads the herd. She's finding the paths for their migration. Let's start with a legend that is related to an area in Poland that is famous for its pagan traditions. So the most sacred place there is the Łysa Góra mountain, or Łysiec, also known as Święty Krzyż, which means Łysa Góra means the bold mountain, or yeah, with the meaning also of brightness. And Święty Krzyż means Holy Cross, and I'll explain why it's so called. But yeah, so of course, when Christianity came, well, we have records in the Chronicles telling us that this place was a place of pagan worship. But then Christianity came and claimed the place for themselves. So the story I'm going to tell you is the Christian version, and it's about Emmerich, who was a Hungarian prince who visited a Polish king, and they went to those mountains, to Świętokrzyskie mountains, to hunt, because they were famous for a wonderful game. And he came to Poland bearing a relic of sacred cross wood. So the wood from, it was believed that it was wood from the cross on which Christ was crucified. So he had some pieces from his father, and he had it with him. So when he goes hunting, he follows a beautiful stag into the thicket and is separated from his companions. Alone, he catches up with the animal that has its antlers trapped in some branches. See the similarity of antlers and branches, by the way. So he tries to shoot an arrow, but then, well, first he admires the deer because it's very beautiful. Then he tries to shoot at it, but then the deer looks at him, and the prince sees a shining double cross between its antlers. So here. And the light was so bright that the prince had to cover his eyes, and when he opened them, the deer was gone. And he realized that he's all alone in the forest, and it's starting to get dark, so not fun. Not being able to find a way, he sits under a tree. A tree. And again, there comes bright light and a divine messenger in the shape of an angel, because it's a Christian story, so we have an angel. And the angel appears before him and tells him to follow him. And he says, I will show you the way to a place where you will be fed, given drink and help. Given like food, drink and help. But for that, you have to give those people there who welcome you, you have to give them the most precious thing that you have. And they arrived at night at the top of this Łysa Góra, sacred mountain. And the monks there welcomed Emmerich, and he, being grateful for what they did for him, he gave them his precious relic, so the wood from the sacred cross. And they put it into a double cross reliquary, like a reliquary in the shape of a double cross. So I will put a picture here. And it is there to this day. And after that, the name of the mountains, because it was Wysogóry, it got changed into Holy Cross Mountains, and now it's also the name of the whole region, Świętokrzyskie. And the mountain is one of the names for the mountain is Święty Krzyż, which is the Holy Cross. So now let's look at some Polish crests, so like coats of arms or city crests or town crests, which are very interesting in themselves. But yeah, so the double cross between deer's horns in Świętokrzyskie, because this is like a symbol of the region, and there is also exactly the same double cross in the crest of Hrubieszów, which is in eastern Poland, really close to the eastern border. So like the link between them is not obvious in a way that, well, you might explain that the eastern city's crest got influenced by the symbol of the Holy Cross from the Wysagura, but they are so far away, so that the link is not obvious. It's possible that the source was more general, let's say, so that it was not linked only to this one place in Poland. Okay, so it was probably more, universally used. And I read an article where the author proposed to see the double cross as a simplified tree, as a tree symbol. And in the light of the consistent deer and tree association, it does make sense. So I will put some images of crests of various towns and cities in Poland, where we can see the relationship between the deer and the tree. So it does make sense. Another thing that, according to chronicles, on that mountain, Wysagura, a trinity of idols has been worshipped. So it's either Wada, Boda, and Leli. And I just wanted to mention that an alternative name for deer is Jeleń, and the alternative name is Leleń. It's in the older times it used to be like an equivalent. Now it's an archaism, but still we know that it used to be like that. So the deity called Leli is possibly related to the animal that is a symbol of this area, so the Jeleń or Leleń. Another chronicle says that there were Świst, Poświst, and Pogoda. It's possible that there were two gods and one goddess, but we don't know that for sure. The double cross symbol also indicates the idea of Trinity, because we have this pole and two arms. So if it was like one goddess, two gods, it might be the pole is the goddess, especially because in Slavic tradition the goddess is very often seen as the tree. She personifies the tree of the world. So she would be the pole and the arms would be like her two companions, maybe. So Christians built the Holy Trinity Church there. So as I mentioned, it was a common practice to build churches consecrated to saints, similar to old gods worshipped in the place. So there was a trinity of Slavic deities, so they placed a Holy Trinity Church there. So yeah. Now I would like to talk a little bit about a Celtic legend that I found in the guidebook for Druid Animal Oracle, and it talks about I will butcher those names. This name, Lugad. So he's a hero who there was a prophecy that the hero who catches a young hide will be the king. And the hero, Lugad, he goes for this quest with his 4 brothers, and he kills a fawn, and they all eat it. Then they get held by a snowstorm and find shelter in a hut where an old hag lives. And she asks each of them to sleep with her, but all 4 of the main characters' brothers, they refuse because she's old and ugly. But Lugard himself, well, they are all called Lugard, but it doesn't matter. The main one. So he agrees. He sleeps with the crone, and while he's making love to her, she turns into a beautiful young woman. And it is the goddess of sovereignty of the land. And he becomes the king. So Emeric's story, the Polish one, is a Christian version, but he also meets a deer, first a deer, and then a human-shaped person, as in angel. And in both instances, he sees divine light, which connects both creatures. And he received a divine message or oracle under the tree. And it's a very popular motif in ancient myth. So the tree oracles were very popular in the ancient world. Now I wanted to mention character from Russian fairy tales. She appears in a couple of them, and she is called Yelena the Wise. And as you can see, she's called Yelena. In modern times, it is believed it's just it probably also is just the Russian version of name Helen. However, I'm suspecting that there is something here, that it was just convenient to use this name and not another. So she's Yelena, and her character combines all three guardians of the world tree, because her chariot, she's a powerful witch queen, and she has a chariot that is pulled by fiery dragons or serpents. So it's the first guardian, the serpent, in the roots of the tree. Her name ties her to the deer, so the earth element. And then she is able to turn into a bird, specifically a doe. So this is the bird in the crown. She is famous for her wisdom and beauty, and she also commands a flock of doe maidens, and she teaches them her craft. Okay, and let's have a look again at this Braniewo crest. It's from 13th century, and it's amazing. It's amazing. I found it yesterday, and it was so cool because all three guardians, in my opinion, of the world tree appear there. So there's the deer, and there's a creature that combines a bird with those bird legs and a beak and the serpentine tail, so like a dragon-like. So it combines those two, and there are many actually folklore creatures that are half serpent, half a bird. So for me, they are all there, and there's the tree together with them. So here in this instance, this is the linden tree, and linden trees and oak trees were among the most sacred trees for the Slavs. Also in Braniewo, it is said that there are 13 linden trees that grow there, and they are important for the city. Naturally, there is a Christian explanation of this crest, and it is said that the deer represents Christianity, and the monster, half bird, half the dragon, basically, it represents evil pagans, because there were Baltic tribes who were pagan and with whom they fought at the time. But yeah, you can see what you want there. Okay, let's go now to Polish legendary Queen Vonda, daughter of Krak. Krak was the founder of Krakow, so one of the old capitals of Poland. and more on her story in my video, Descending Goddesses. So she is also known to be the wisest and the most beautiful in the land. And she doesn't seem to have links to a deer, but she is a type of like a triple deity figure. She's the mistress of 3 worlds, heaven, land, and the sea. Under her rule, the land blooms, and she refuses her suitor, who is a foreign invader, and defeats his army. He then kills himself, his soldiers drown in a lake, and she ends up jumping into Vistula River when famine comes to her land. And also more on that in the Sacred Death in Slavic Spring Ritual video, because this video that I'm making right now will be very long. So yeah, it would be even longer. So her self-sacrifice restores prosperity in the land. So the prosperity of the land depends on her. And had the foreign prince married her, he would be the king. And how do we know that? Seeing that he wasn't worthy, Vonda protected the land from him. She literally like defeated his armies. But how do we know that he would be king? We know that because in Czech legend, there is a Czech legend where there is the ruler called Krok. So we have Krak in Poland and Krok in Czechia. And he has 3 daughters. He has Kazi, Tetka or Teta, and Libusza. And they are described as witch. Well, from the description we can deduce that they were a witch or a shaman. So it would be Kazi, and she would be related to the serpent. A priest or a seer, which would be Tetka, and she then would be related to the bird. And a wise queen, Libusza, who then would be related to the deer or other like land-related animals. And together they form a figure like Vonda, who has all 3 of those aspects in her. And in the Czech legend, Libusza is forced to marry, and her husband, Przemysl, becomes king of the Czechs. So yeah, yesterday I was blown away while researching the deer topics in Slavic myth, and I stumbled upon Ylitza from Serbian epic poem. And yeah, I will just remind you that Yelena is a Slavic word for deer. So there's Ylitza, and with help from my Serbian friend, thanks Milica if you're watching, I learned that her story surprisingly resembles that of Vonda. So she is forced to marry a foreigner. In this instance, it's a Turk, but it's logical for Serbs. In Polish version, it was a prince from Germany. And her suitor threatens to kill her husband and then marry her by force. So the couple decides to commit suicide. And then I was like, wait a minute, there's this foreigner, she refuses. And so I ask, and she's Ylitza, so she might be related to like this whole code of sovereignty. That's what I thought. So then I asked my friend, oh, how did she die? Thinking, I wonder if she drowned in the river. Surprise, surprise, she drowned in the river. She actually jumps with her husband into Velika Morava River, which is the largest river in Serbia. So it's, of course, this story is also a Christian story. So she was mostly opposing the Turk because he was a Muslim. But yeah, I don't think it matters here. So she refuses to marry a foreigner. Her partner or suitor dies, and she jumps into the river. It's like, wow, just wherever you look, it's there. So I was very happy because I couldn't find much in English about this story, and my friend was just there and helped me. It was amazing. So yeah, but anyway, doesn't that sound familiar? There's goddess Marzanna or Morena or Morana. She jumps into the river too, possibly after killing her husband. This is also in the Sacred Death in Slavic Spring Myth video. There's more. And also check out the Morava and Morana dynamic. Maybe there's something going on there. There are also other places with this name in Slavic lands as well. And there's also Maria Morevna in Russian tales, who is kidnapped by a death god. But yeah, I'm not going there today because there's still a lot of material. So yeah, well, this story also reminds me a bit because, you know, I am from Warsaw, and there is this tale, like the symbol and crest of Warsaw is a mermaid, an armed mermaid with a saber and a shield. And yeah, she was kidnapped and was to be given, she lived in the river, and she was kidnapped and was to be given to a prince, but she escaped and jumped back into Vistula River, and she pulled a young man who helped her escape with her. So basically they died. Possibly he died, she lived because she was a mermaid, but you know where I'm going with this. And she is the protectress of the capital of Poland because she has this sword and shield. And now she is a mermaid, but in the old times she actually used to be half woman and half dragon. Then we have a very interesting document from 13th century Poland. It's called the Rudolph Catalog of Magic, let's say. It's a text written in Latin, and it's a kind of a textbook for priests, written by said priest Rudolph, instructing on pagan customs of Slavic people, so that the priests would know what to stamp out. And their parishes. So there is this quotation that Slavic people, well, it is about Slavic people. It's like 90% for sure that it's about Slavic people. So they set the table for Queen of Heaven, whom they call Lady Holda. So some scholars believe that Rudolph was a monk either from France or Italy, and he didn't know Polish, so being witness to those pagan rites, he tried to explain them using names and customs known to him from like Roman, German, and Jewish traditions, because he also uses in some other instance he uses Greek names for the three fates, Kloto, Lachesis, Atropos. But yeah, anyway, so he mentions the Queen of Heaven and the name of Lady Holda, who was one of the names of goddess Hel or Hela, the Germanic goddess. So yeah, I think that actually connecting the reindeer to Christmas is not such a bad idea, or like modern time consumerism thingy. So Rudolph, yeah, he was Rudolph. I mean, the monk was Rudolph, and we have Rudolph, the red-nosed reindeer. The red-nosed reindeer finds the way in the fog, leading the other reindeer, just like the reindeer doe leads the reindeer herd. And what is also interesting, you might not know, but Rudolph is a girl, because we see those horned reindeer, and actually it's only female reindeer that have their horns during winter, because males remove their antlers just before, at the end of autumn, and the horned ones around winter solstice are the females. Yeah. So I wanted also to quote a very interesting Romanian Christmas carol. Just find it. Oh, here. So this is Maria Gimbutas's The Language of the Goddess. Woo, sorry. So, some Romanian Christmas carols contain archaic elements with no Christian matter in them. Examples are stag carols, in which the animal crosses a river carrying a cradle between his big horns. In the cradle is a beautiful girl. She is usually stitching and keeps, so it's stitching, and so we can instantly imagine the weaving and spinning fates type goddesses, but anyway, she's stitching and keeps warning the stag that if he does not swim smoothly, he may spoil her work, and then her brothers or hunters will kill him. She further says, "Make my wedding with your flesh, build my house with your bones, roof it with your hide, paint it with your blood, fix your skull on my gate, make good drinking cups of your hooves." Ah, exciting, huh? Exciting Christmas carol. And yeah, it is a Romanian song, so it's not Slavic, but it's not Christian either, so we can use it for comparison, I suppose. And if we're talking about winter solstice, let's have a look at the Polish ritual pastry for New Year's Eve, or January the 6th, so-called Three Kings. So these are the Nowe Latko, so the new year, and so-called Byśki or Stworzenia, which means Stworzenia means creatures, in the meaning of animals. So one of the most popular versions of this pastry is so-called shepherd, like shepherd or host surrounded by a ring of hens. And yeah, and you know, it somehow reminds me of this, of Yelena the Wise here, who was surrounded with this flock of birds. So also among the animal pastries, the stworzenia, we can see a lot of deer figurines. Also, these pastries remind me of ancient pre-Indo-European figurines. And I should have it here. So one example would be this one. This one. Compare like this X here. X was in general a popular motif on old goddess figurines. And those buttons here, somehow it really resembles. And this is the Kukuteni culture. And look at the X here and here. So also on those Polish pastries. And this is actually, Kukuteni was in modern day Romania. So just so you know. And yeah, in modern times, the figure surrounded by the birds is believed to be masculine. But I suppose that the female figure surrounded by female birds, like hens, actually makes more sense. But that's my opinion. We can see that because Slavic people were at least in like later part of their existence, in later days, they were quite patriarchal, but here and there we can glimpse like also like more of the goddess worship and power. So I suppose it got overlapped in a way. But yeah, let's move on. In Polish folklore, we have, among others, two figures who bring presents for Christmas. And it's, for example, Gwiazdor and Gwiazdka. So I have this picture here. So they are like a pair that appears, and this is a male and female star. Gwiazdor is male and Gwiazdka is female. In some regions we don't have Gwiazdka, we have Dzieciątko, which means the baby. But in fact, it's called the baby, but in fact it is a young woman dressed in white and with a veil on her face, which is quite surprising, wouldn't you say? And let's just remember the Romanian carol where we have a cradle with a girl in it. So that deer from the carol would actually have the goddess or the tree, because goddess symbolizes the tree, or the tree symbolizes the goddess. Can be both ways. Or he has this baby in the cradle between his horns. And also, we worship a tree on Christmas, don't we? So I meant to like link it to that deer that I showed with this double cross between his antlers, just to be clear. So we have here a goddess, probably a solar one, like other female figures I mentioned here are known for their striking beauty and brightness, so it makes sense that they would be solar deities. Here's my cute picture of it's a group of Christmas carol singers. This is called the star, and it has light inside it, and this is what they carry with them. The star, huh? And so probably a kind of like a solar deity, light bringer, who comes together with her male companion, kind of like a horned god, a deer or a man, because in old times, which this book speaks a lot about, there were much more often animals were imagined as deities, not people. Then it started like merging animal with the human body, and later on it turned into human-shaped, but in Egypt not, anyway, into a human-shaped image of a god or goddess who would have an attribute of an animal. But so it's her male companion, who is a horned creature, and Gwiazdor in tradition is described as wearing a sheepskin with the wool part out to symbolize relationship with animals. And some scholars equate him with Veles or Nia, the horned god of underworld. Wait a minute, I have a picture of him. I have them all together now because I'm writing this guidebook. Where are you? Oh, here. So the horned god. And the deer from the carol is both like a divine companion and a sacrifice, so at the same time. And we can see that, for example, in cults of Greek god Dionysus, he was a god, and at the same time he was a bull or a goat sacrificed to him. Interestingly, in southern Slavic myth, goddess Morana, which I mentioned before, kills her husband Yarilo and builds a house out of his body, just like what the girl says to the deer in the Romanian Christmas carol. So he is both the god and the sacrifice, and he dies for the good of everyone in the community, and undoubtedly he will rise in spring. He will be reborn. So some scholars point to the resemblance of Slavic motifs to the wild hunt, where there's either a female, for example, goddess Hela, or male, like Woden or Odin, chief, so the person leading the wild hunt. In Polish folk tradition, Gwiazdka and Gwiazdor come together with masks on their faces, or a veil or a mask, and this symbolizes so that they are coming from the land of the dead. They might be leading the souls of ancestors who arrived to Earth for the time between winter solstice and spring equinox. And so the ancestors were believed to come on winter solstice and live with their what's it called? Their grandchildren and so on. So they would stay, they would hang, and then on spring equinox they would go back to the underworld. And so they would be leading them for Christmas to arrive and then take them back to the underworld. And remember, underworld and the waters and the forest all have the meaning of the other world. And then, so the god dies first, and the goddess, like Marzanna here, she follows suit. She goes to the underworld or jumps into the river, probably together taking with her the serpents who represent the ancestors. And with the rise of cattle husbandry, the deer in many myths got probably replaced by a bovine animal. And for example, in Polish terminology for deer and the horned cattle, the Polish terminology for deer and horned cattle is interchangeable. For example, male deer in Polish is byk, which is this exactly the same word, which means a bull. The traveling goddess, the traveling deer like reindeer herd. It just linked in my mind the tradition of in which Mother Mary traveled really a lot, and for that, for those legends related to herbs, check out my video Goddess and the Herbs. And the tradition of the image of Mother of God, like a painting, visiting the homes. And I remember something like that from my own childhood. So she's traveling like the chief doe of the reindeer herd. Just a thought. And lastly, I wanted to mention Ellen of the Roads. And I have this book here by Kathleen and John Matthews. So actually, there was a person on Instagram. I don't know if she wants me to mention her name, but she actually commented on my image of Lelen, whether it is possible that the modern Ellen of the Ways might be somehow connected to this tradition. And I'm I'm grateful for that because it made me think. But anyway, there is this. I'll just read it. So Helen of the Roads, or Ellen, and it's about Celtic deities and heroes. Known sometimes as a goddess of trackways and ancient roads, goddess of the dream paths, Helen or Ellen features in the dream of, and I don't know how to read it, Maxen Uledi. Sorry, I have no clue. In the Mabinogion, in which she rules over the country of dreams. Known also as the goddess of evening and morning, she performs the role of guide and instructor for those seeking the old serpent ways to the sites of arcane knowledge. Perhaps one of the oldest native deities, she assumed Roman influence and became identified with Saint Helen of Colchester, the mother of Constantine the Great. One of the great trackways in Wales is known as Sarn Helen, Helen's Road. What's interesting, modern pagans, they call her, as far as I know, Ellen of the Ways. They seem to link this Celtic sovereignty goddess with deer and reindeer. And I was like, really? Well, plus there's the name, Ellen. And my mind has been blown away many times yesterday. And I know it's not really relevant, but the name of Helen's Road, Sarn Helen, seems like the goddess is really winking to me. Like it's a kind of like a synchronicity. Because even though I know that the Sarn part is a Welsh word, probably for road, but in Polish sarna is a type of deer. So I thought, wow, this is such a nice bow to tie on this topic. So to sum it up, a goddess is associated with deer come from very ancient times. Oh, did I show you that one? There's this beautiful, very, very old image. Yeah. It's from Magdalenian times caves. So it's really ancient, but how beautiful is that? These are the reindeer with probably salmon, a kind of fish. And there are vaginas here, just so you know. The deer is not the only animal epiphany of the goddess, because however we try to classify her, she seems to be very, very fluid and very often really shows that, like, these are only the aspects of her, and she can be a triple goddess, but she can have many more faces, as is presented in this Lady of the Beasts, because it covers many animal associations. But the deer for me here, like, codes her aspect as that of the sovereignty. So, as I mentioned at the beginning, like related to the earth, to our world. And she's also the one, because the deer is the guardian of the tree, that the tree links all of the world, so you can travel here and there, right? Like the goddess travels on the deer's horns. And so she's the one that shows the path and who brings the sun and the light, because on winter solstice, the days start to get longer. And the one who feeds us. So, and it was also like what reindeer did for humans, right? Well, they did not literally bring the sun, but figuratively speaking, probably yes. Well, people would follow the reindeer, and they would get food and drink. They would get milk from the reindeer, and they would get clothes from their skins. And yeah, and she's, as I said, the world tree that is the axis mundi and that connects all three worlds. So this was long. If you finished, congratulations, and please let me know if you enjoyed it. What do you thought about it? How did you like it? Yeah, I would love to know. And even if you don't have much to say, just, I don't know, something really short. Hi, I liked it. I will be happy because I really put a lot of work into those videos, and then if I get some, you know, energy back, then I'm more motivated to work on the next ones and so on. So yeah, please let me know. And have a lovely day. Bye.